Today I'm going to teach you how I manifested something totally random. This beautiful natural yellow topaz gemstone and gold ring, which you'll usually see me wearing in other videos, on my middle finger. Now, because I like to leave no stone unturned, I want to take you back to the very beginning. I need to tell this story because it will highlight the point of this video. This particular manifestation started with learning about pranic healing. And pranic is similar to Reiki, although it's probably a much more measured scientific approach to energy healing. And one of the things taught in this particular practice is that red and yellow, including gemstones in this color, can help increase abundance. Now, before I go any further, I want to point something out because I really feel that it's genuinely important, and it's something that most people tend to miss entirely. You see, my higher self guided me towards learning an energy healing modality in the first place as a way of clearing this particular block that I had. That guidance is actually assigned within my 8-stage manifestation framework. And if you stick around until the very end of this video, I will tell you exactly which stage this particular sign tends to show up in. But in the meantime, see if you can guess and let me know in the comments. Now, going back to the gemstones, I want to be completely transparent with you here. Like most people, I struggle to manifest money, and it's a block I'm still currently working through. That said, it hasn't stopped me manifesting representations of abundance and wealth. I've won all kinds of competitions. I've manifested 2 completely different homes, including this penthouse. I've manifested trips abroad, on super yachts as well, and as it turns out, this particular ring. Because I genuinely want to work through my money blocks, I suddenly had this strange urge to learn an energy healing modality, which then led me to these particular gemstones. And for clarity, that urge itself was my higher self guiding me towards transformation, which is one of the 28 signs I talk about that you're likely to experience somewhere along your manifestation journey. And the video is here if you want to learn about those 28 signs. Now, even though I built an international jewelry business from the ground up many years ago, I had never actually owned a yellow or red gemstone ring myself. Rubies never really appealed to me, and so I suppose yellow quietly became the color I was drawn to, which most likely meant either topaz or citrine. Now, not long after learning that red and yellow gemstones could actually attract abundance, I then found myself listening to a woman tell her story about how her own abundance had shifted and improved after she started wearing a citrine bracelet. So this is what I call a synchronistic event, when 2 connected concepts grab your attention within a very short space of time, totally unconnected and yet connected. And that's when this large yellow gemstone ring set in gold came to mind. I remember thinking, oh, I fancy a large rectangular natural yellow gemstone set in yellow gold. And according to pranic healing mythology, it's best to sit on the middle finger. Now, because the mind works in symbols and imagery, I pictured it. I got genuinely excited imagining how it would look on my hand. And that lasted probably about 30 seconds. Then I got on with my day and completely forgot all about it. Just to be clear, I didn't chase it afterwards. I didn't go looking online to buy a yellow gemstone ring. I didn't build a pretty vision board around it, visualize or journal it every single night. I simply felt the natural pull of desire. Let myself enjoy it fully for just a moment, just a couple of seconds, and then I completely let it go. And that's the part I really want you to notice, because it's the whole point of this video. That's how synchronicity often works. The first sign gets your attention. The second sign confirms it. When you learn to notice the symbolic nature of signs, just like this one, rather than dismissing them as coincidence, you start to realize just how consistently the universe and your higher self are guiding you towards your desires, long before you consciously understand what's actually happening. What is funny, however, is that I did start looking for a ruby ring, but I didn't find anything that I liked, and so again, I let that one go. 6 months later, I was in Australia visiting my family, staying with my aunt for a couple of days in North Sydney. And one evening she got out her jewellery box because she was telling me the story and started showing me a couple of pieces, telling me stories about each one behind them. And then she paused at the yellow topaz ring her parents, my grandparents, had given her for her 21st birthday. And by the way, her twin sister had received the same design, but it was an amethyst gemstone. And then she paused and thought, and I could see realization dawning. To be honest, I've never even worn this ring, she said. I've never really resonated with the stone. And then she held it out for me to try on. Go on. Try it on. And I could gauge the size of the ring, so I automatically slid it onto my middle finger. The exact finger for abundance. And lo and behold, it fit perfectly. It was a pretty 18-carat solid gold intricate leaf setting wrapped around a huge voluminous natural deep golden yellow topaz gemstone cut in a rectangular shape. I mean, you could not make this stuff up. It really suits you, she said. And I admired it for a few moments and said, it's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. And I was genuinely interested to find out why she'd never worn it. As I was taking off the ring from my finger to hand it back to her, my auntie said to me, I think you should have it. It really suits you. And I can see you absolutely love it. And I did. I loved it. And I could see she meant it. And so even though I was genuinely shocked at the gesture, I was so moved. My auntie knew me. She knew I loved jewellery and I would cherish it and one day pass it down to one of my girls. So the best thing I could say was simply, thank you. I absolutely love it. And I do love it. Actually, I have barely taken it off my finger ever since. Now, an hour later or so, once I had come down from the surprise and excitement of experiencing something so emotionally touching and being given something so truly special that spoke to my heart, I remember the image in my mind almost perfectly matched the ring on my finger. I was looking at it and realized, oh my God, I've manifested it. That's when an old adage, often attributed to Buddha, came to my mind. When you realize how simple life is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. And so I did. But what's even funnier is that 2 or 3 days later, I then went to the races with my cousin who was wearing an almost identically designed ring with an almost identical yellow stone in an almost exactly the same size. We took a photo together in disbelief and sent it to my auntie as we were laughing our socks off. Now that was an insane synchronicity I'll never forget. But I hadn't asked for this ring. I hadn't visualized it nightly or journaled it or cut out similar pictures to stick on my vision board. I'd simply had a genuine flicker of desire, felt it fully for a few moments and then released it. And somehow, on the other side of the world, it found its way back to me and onto my finger anyway. And manifestation is this easy. I like to say there is often an element of magic as well, and I do believe that in this particular case. So today I want to walk through with you what I actually did. What was the main ingredient? Because I genuinely believe the simple act of desire is the main ingredient of manifestation. In fact, I go so far as to say I believe it's the only real ingredient for manifestation that you need. But unfortunately, it's also the single most misunderstood one. You see, most people assume the real work of manifestation is the visualizing, the vision boards, the affirmations, the constant effort of trying to force or create a picture in mind and hold that feeling forever. However, I genuinely don't think that's actually where the power lies. I think the power lies right at the very start or spark of manifestation, in the desire itself. And I want to show you why, including some genuinely fascinating science that backs a surprising amount of what I'm about to say up. But first, what did I actually do? These are the 3 simple steps to manifestation that I repeat regularly, and they are the only steps that truly matter. You see, over the last 14 years of researching, documenting, and testing this process literally hundreds of times, I've come to realize to understand manifestation really only needs 3 simple steps. And I call it DAL, D-A-L, desire, assume, let go. So the first step is desire. And desire is the sacred spark. Not because it creates anything from nothing, but because it invokes and claims. There is no creation involved here. The simple act of desire is enough to claim that particular experience directly from the blueprint of all that exists, of all that is, in the field of infinite possibility. When you feel something clearly, cleanly, deeply, combining thought and real, crystal clear emotion, you are simply plucking at that string of that particular existing possibility, giving it physical form. You're sending a signal into the field, calling for what already exists in a blueprint form. Now, the second step is assume. This means fully declaring it as already yours, not hoping for it, not wondering if it might arrive someday or happen someday. It means you are now fully aligned with it, embodying the feeling of already having it, receiving it right now. And then the third and final step is just to let it go. This means releasing your grip or your hold on how and when it might arrive, trusting that what you've already invoked or claimed is now in motion, making its way into your 3-dimensional reality, allowing you to step back from the exhausting job of trying to control every detail of its arrival. And this is my DAL, my DAL framework. Desire invokes and claims. Assumption aligns. Letting go allows. And if you want to go deeper into this idea of invoking rather than creating, including how it connects to the Akashic Records or my experience of the Akashic Records and quantum superposition, I actually made an entire video explaining this particular concept in detail. And I'll drop the link right here. You can watch it after this one if it resonates with you. But it's worth pausing on those last two because most manifestation content spends all of its energy on techniques they say create what you want and then rushes past the 2 steps that actually determine whether that desire will land in your reality. Assumption is where you stop treating your desire as a future possibility and start treating it as a present fact. It's already yours. Not to hope it's happening, but simply that it is already yours and you are living in that reality now. And so your nervous system responds to what feels real in that moment, not to a hopeful projection sitting outside of you in some random future. Letting go, I think, is the step most people find hardest because it runs directly against everything we've been taught about achievement. That wanting something means gripping it, checking it constantly, making it happen. Whereas letting go asks the opposite, to trust that the claim has already been heard and made and is now simply in motion. This isn't giving up, it's closing the loop. Desire claims the blueprint from the infinite realm. Assumption confirms it. Letting go allows the universe to deliver it without your grip getting in the way of its own timing. Now, if you've been studying manifestation for a while, you may have come across a similar idea you've spent time learning about online. Helen Hadsell, sometimes called the contest queen, became famous for winning extraordinary amounts of competitions across her lifetime, including holidays, homes, cars, etc. She taught a specific formula called SPEC: select it, project it, expect it, and collect it. Having studied her work, something interesting hit me. If you go back and actually read her books and listen to her earlier interviews rather than the later teaching material, you may notice she wasn't consciously running through SPEC while she was winning all those prizes and competitions. She only introduced that acronym later in her teaching career, most likely to give students something memorable to hold on to. What she actually did in practice was far more simpler. She plucked at a clear desire, visualized it briefly, and then assumed it was already done. And she held complete, unwavering conviction that it was on its way. She was so confident in this process that she used to say, "There are no failures, only delays." Now, I happen to agree, and I'd add that those delays only really show up when belief isn't fully aligned yet. You'll notice my formula doesn't include a separate project step either, and that's deliberate. You see, projection happens naturally within desire itself. The moment you desire something with real clarity and depth, you are already projecting that energy outward and aligning with that existing blueprint. Interestingly, in one of Helen's interviews, I came across her saying something along those lines, that desire alone might genuinely be all that you need to claim what's yours. So why does this feel too simple to be true, that we just don't believe it? Well, not all, but most of us have been raised on the opposite belief entirely, that life is hard, that you have to construct everything from the ground up through sheer friction and grit, that you have to strive and compete and prove yourself before you're allowed to receive anything good. So when I tell you manifestation doesn't require you to create anything, but simply to claim what already exists, your subconscious mind will very likely push back. It might even feel a little insulting to how hard you've been working for things in the past. I understand that resistance completely because I felt it myself. I was skeptical when I first started exploring all of manifestation seriously, but I asked myself a simple question. What have I actually got to lose in trying? My life at the time was going through a rough patch, so I decided to test it properly, over and over again, rather than dismiss it from the sidelines. And over years of genuinely committing to understanding how this works, researching my own experiences alongside the work and discoveries of others, I came to recognize the same reoccurring principles again and again. These same principles anyone can learn to work with deliberately. So let's actually get into what desire is, because I don't think it's what most people assume it is. I call it the sacred spark. Firstly, manifestation always begins with a desire. So I want to clarify exactly what that looks like. Desire is an interest. It's a type of want where you feel a pull towards something. And that desire is both a thought and a feeling combined. It's not simply a wish floating past your mind. It's thought fused with genuine emotional charge, reaching out to pluck at a specific possibility. And I want to walk you through what's actually happening underneath desire, because when you slow it right down, you realize it isn't just one single feeling. It's a whole sequence, almost like a chain reaction moving through distinct stages. And it starts with curiosity, the small spark before the spark. The moment your attention gets caught by something and a quiet, "Oh, that's interesting," and quickly followed by a what if thought that starts forming. From there comes awareness, where you consciously notice that pull for the first time. Thought begins shaping it, drawing on memory and past experiences to help you understand what you're noticing and what you want. Interest builds momentum as your attention gathers around the idea, and your mind starts quietly asking, how does this matter to me? Intention gives it direction, selecting this particular possibility out of everything else available to you in the field. And then comes feeling, the emotional charge that tells your nervous system this actually matters to you. This is where things get genuinely interesting from a scientific standpoint, because that emotional charge isn't just a poetic idea, it's measurable. So let's look at the science of desire. Neuroscience has spent decades studying exactly this process, how a fleeting thought becomes a motivating pull strong enough to change our behavior. And it turns out desire has a very real, very physical signature in the brain. At the center of it sits a network called the brain's reward system, particularly a pathway involving a chemical messenger called dopamine. Now, for a long time, people assumed dopamine was the pleasure chemical, released once you get the thing you want. Hence why it was called the reward chemical. But research over the last few decades has shown something far more interesting. Dopamine isn't primarily about the reward itself. It's about anticipation. It spikes when you're brain predicts something good is coming, and that spike is precisely what creates the pull, the motivation, the felt sense of wanting. This is sometimes called the wanting system, as distinct from the liking system, and researchers have found the two can actually be separated. In other words, you can want something intensely, driven by dopamine-fueled anticipation, independent of how much pleasure you'll actually feel once you have it. This is exactly why desire feels so magnetic, so energizing, almost electric, well before the outcome ever physically arrives. Your brain has already responded in real time, simply to the act of calling it forward. There's another piece of the brain worth mentioning here called the Reticular Activating System, or the RAS. It sits at the base of your brainstem and acts almost like a filter, deciding what information from the enormous, overwhelming flood of your environment is actually important enough to bring to your conscious attention for you to be aware of. Once you form a clear, emotionally charged desire, your reticular activating system effectively gets a new set of instructions. It starts filtering your world differently, drawing your attention towards anything relevant to that claimed desire that it might previously have simply just screened out or deleted entirely. And this is exactly part of why, once you've plucked that specific string of desire, you suddenly start noticing it everywhere. The exact car in the exact color that you had your eye on, the exact opportunity, the exact type of person that you want in your life, the exact ring. It's not that the world suddenly generated it from nothing. Your filtering system simply attuned to what was already there. Then there's the brain's decision-making architecture, particularly regions like the prefrontal cortex, which effectively runs a rapid internal calculation, weighing potential risks over rewards before committing you to a course of action. This is essentially the neurological version of what I call decision within the desire architecture. The moment clarity crystallizes into genuine commitment to a specific timeline rather than staying a vague, unfocused wish. I find this fascinating because none of it requires you to believe in anything mystical at all. It simply confirms in very concrete biological terms that a clear, emotionally charged desire genuinely does change how your brain filters information, predicts rewards, and directs your behavior, often below the level of your conscious awareness. Desire isn't just a nice feeling. It restructures your whole attention, priming your brain to look at your reality differently, to look for your desire. By the way, after years of studying the process of thinking, I firmly believe the risk-reward calculation is also the fulcrum upon which all your thoughts and desires and decisions are formed. Now, there's one more piece of research worth mentioning here because I think it explains something that a lot of manifestation teachers tend to gloss over. Studies on goal pursuit having consistently shown that vividly imagining a desired outcome activates many of the same neural regions involved in actually experiencing it, which is part of why visualization is so powerful. But researchers have also found something people don't talk about nearly half as much. Purely fantasizing about an outcome without any accompanying sense of effort, expectation, or emotional investment can actually reduce motivation rather than increase it, because the brain gets a small hit of satisfaction from the fantasy alone and quietly relaxes its drive to pursue the real thing. Which is why daydreaming alone often isn't enough. What does seem to matter is combining that vivid imagery with genuine emotional conviction that it's already achievable and already underway, which is precisely what the assumption step in my DAL system is designed to do. Now let's talk about aligned desire versus craving, which are essentially polar opposites. There's a distinction that I think is genuinely important because not all desire behaves in the same way. There's a real difference between what I'd call aligned desire and craving. Craving tends to come from a place of lack, scarcity, fear. It feels tight, urgent, it feels restless, it feels needy, grasping for something outside yourself to fill a void, a gap. Whereas aligned desire feels completely different. It feels expansive and open. It invites rather than grips. It arises from curiosity, from genuine interest, from a sense of stepping into what already belongs to you, rather than escaping who you currently are. This matters because the two carry noticeably different emotional energetic signatures. Aligned desire tends to move cleanly through the physical manifestation process, unfolding with real ease. Craving, by contrast, tends to create resistance, obsession, burnout because it's rooted in the belief that something is missing rather than the belief that a reality is simply ready to be received. The clearest way I know to check which one you're feeling is to notice the sensation in your body when you desire something. Does this feel like longing? Does it feel like anxiety? Or does it feel warm and alive and expansive, open and curious and magnetic? Does it feel wonderful? Or does it feel like you're struggling? If it does feel like it's inviting you to become really curious, to make a move forward and to feel alive, it's more likely to be genuine desire because desire has an element of love to it. Learning to feel that difference is, I think, one of the most useful manifestation skills there is. In fact, I think it's key. After introspecting the concept of desire, I began pulling it apart to understand what actually makes it up, just as I did for curiosity and manifestation. I have a habit of taking seemingly simple concepts like curiosity, desire, thought, manifestation, and asking what is actually happening underneath all of this. What is it doing? How is it made up? For me, desire begins with curiosity, followed by awareness, thought, and interest as a possibility starts to take shape. Intention gives it direction. Feeling and love give it emotional significance. Imagination allows us to experience it internally. Clarity refines what we truly want, and decision creates commitment. Finally comes alignment and authenticity. When all these components are genuinely aligned inside you, moving in the same direction, desire becomes coherent. Now let's talk about the real magic ingredient, coherence. When every part of the desire lines up, curiosity, awareness, thought, feeling, love, clarity, and decision, all moving in the same direction, all genuinely authentic to you, desire becomes what I call coherent. Think of it like a laser. An ordinary light bulb scatters light in every direction. It's weak and it's diffuse. Whereas a laser takes that same light and aligns every wave so it moves in one precise, powerful direction. Coherent desire works in the same way. It's not loud, it's not forceful, it's simply undivided. And I think this is genuinely the magic ingredient behind manifestation, far more than visualization itself, because visualization arises from the desire. So for those of you who are struggling to visualize vividly, there's no need to worry. I get that question all the time from many of my clients. You can absolutely manifest even if you can't visualize it. What actually seems to matter most is coherence, a clear, aligned, emotionally undivided signal that plucks the exact possibility you want, rather than a technically perfect mental picture. And that also means that you must make a decision for exactly what it is that you want. And so let's look at the bigger picture here, because I've talked before in various different videos about the vision I once had, an experience I understood in spiritual terms as a glimpse of something called the Akashic Records, a vast field where every possible outcome already exists in blueprint or echo form. And I've talked about how strikingly similar that concept is to something in quantum physics called superposition. The idea that before observation, particles exist not as one fixed state or thing, but as a spread of every possible state at once in waveform. I want to be careful here, the same way that I've been careful before. I'm not a physicist, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not claiming quantum mechanics has proven manifestation works. That would be overstating the current science. But what I am comfortable saying is this: the deepest layer of physical reality that science currently understands describes a universe built on possibility rather than fixed certainty. And that maps remarkably well into what spiritual traditions have described in their own language for thousands of years through concepts like the Akashic Records. If that structure is even partly right, then desire isn't originating or building something out of nothing. It's an act of selection, plucking at a string of information in that field of infinite possibility to claim a blueprint that already exists in echo form, out of an enormous field of possible outcomes. A clear, coherent, emotionally charged desire is what allows one specific possibility to resolve into your actual physical experience. I want to address something else quickly because I think it holds a lot of people back. Let me say this: desire is not the problem. Many of us have absorbed the idea, often from spiritual or religious teachings, that desire itself is somehow the problem, that it's bad, that wanting things is selfish, or that true peace only comes from wanting nothing at all. But notice something: desire for peace is still desire. Even monks following ancient spiritual traditions are pursuing something: awakening, liberation, freedom, stillness, peace of mind. So therefore, desire itself has never really been the issue. What actually causes suffering is desire distorted by fear, lack, scarcity, by the belief that you need to grasp at something outside yourself to feel whole, that you need to work hard for it. That causes resistance and distorts a coherent energy signature. Yet in its purest form, desire is simply life moving through you, calling you towards an existing possibility. It's the spark behind every invention, every act of love, every meaningful change anyone has ever experienced in their life. Suppressing it doesn't make you more spiritual. It just disconnects you from your own compass. Personally, I have come to realize the more I open myself up to my truest heartfelt desires, then the more authentic I am becoming towards myself, the truer I am becoming to be myself. And this is gold. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. You don't need to force a vivid visualization if that's not something that you can naturally achieve. Nor do you need to try to create your reality from scratch. You are not creating from scratch. You are not creator. What actually matters is far simpler and far more accessible than most manifestation teachers suggest. Notice what genuinely lights you up. Let yourself feel it fully, plucking that string of desire without immediately questioning whether you deserve it or whether it's realistic. That is not up to you to decide. Notice whether it feels expansive or tight, whether it's inviting you forward or dragging you down from a place of lack. And then, just as I did with that ring, let it go. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care or that you don't want it, because a desire, once it has been claimed from its blueprint, from the field of everything, doesn't need you to grip it tightly to travel towards you. I never told anyone other than myself that I wanted that ring. I didn't visualize it fully. I didn't visualize it all the time. I simply noticed a clear, warm pull toward it. Let myself enjoy that feeling for a moment, that desire, and then I moved on with my life. 6 months later, on the other side of the planet, that coherent energy signature found me anyway. I don't think that was a coincidence. I think it was a desire doing exactly what it's designed to do when you let it. I also think it was 2 signs stacked one after the other, quietly guiding me there. The kind of guidance that's happening around us all the time when we learn to notice it, to understand it, to realize it's guiding us. And by the way, once you've finished with this particular video, you might want to go back to one of my earlier videos on superposition in the Akashic Records to see how all of this fits into the whole. And if you have ever experienced a moment like that, where something you barely spoke about, let alone out loud, somehow found its way to you? I genuinely love to hear your story in the comments below. And if you do have a question about manifestation, please drop the comment below, because your comments inspire me to make even more content for you. And if you'd like to go even deeper into how all of this works, I'd love for you to join me for a free 1-hour live workshop where I'll walk you through the 8 hidden stages of manifestation, including exactly why so many people get stuck, and how to recognize the signs when your own desires are already on their way to you. You can reserve your spot through my website, melindamulcahy.com. I genuinely would love to see you there. Finally, did you guess which stage that urge to learn pranic healing belonged to? It was stage 3, clearing. This is the stage where guidance often appears to direct you towards the beliefs, the blocks, the behaviors or patterns that need to be recognized and released. Sometimes that guidance doesn't look like a sign at all. It can simply feel like a sudden urge to learn something, explore a healing modality like pranic, or to follow a new direction. Only later do you realize it was leading you towards exactly what needed to change. Lastly, don't forget, the universe always says yes. Are you saying yes to you?